In today's Farm Report, the Conservation Reserve Program, also known as CRP, turns 30 years old this year. And as Rod Bain with the U.S. Department of Agriculture reports, a former Agriculture Secretary who is credited with beginning the program is still surprised at how successful the program has become over the last 3 decades.
USDA's Conservation Reserve Program celebrates its 30th anniversary this month. The driver behind the idea and implementation of this program is former Agriculture Secretary John Block, who served in the Reagan administration in the 1980s.
We were setting aside some of the best land in the world. In order to have farm program supports, you'd have to take out 10 or 15% of your ground, and some of it was really good ground. So my idea, well, if we're going to set something aside, let's do something that can protect the soil and get some of this fragile land out of production.
So after some debate, Secretary Block managed to include CRP as part of the 1985 Farm Bill. Considering how the program has grown in scope and wide-ranging support over 3 decades, one might think CRP is perhaps John Block's legacy as Secretary of Agriculture. But he says it's just one example of what he tried to do while in office.
I consider my legacy as working hard to reform farm programs, and that was part of the reform, but we also got rid of setting this land aside, the good land, and so we stopped doing that.
Some of that approach comes from Block's experience as a farmer. He still owns farmland, some of that enrolled into CRP.
We've had some for years and years. I can't remember if we started the first year or second, but we've had CRP land on our farms. And a lot of our farms are not erosive, but we have got some fields that might be pretty flat for the most part, but then there's a river or a stream down at the bottom and it's rough down in there. Instead of trying to farm that, which you get a lot of erosion, we put it in CRP.
The fact that CRP has grown into more than just a soil conservation tool over its 30 years is, well, in John Block's words,
it's blossomed into more than I ever really anticipated.
In part because of its water quality protections. Also, there is CRP's growing popularity with outdoor recreationists of all kinds. And there is the varieties of plants on CRP land, some with potential as an energy feedstock, much as part of wildlife habitat.
There's insistence that you've got to have the right kind of crops or foliage growing there and grass and legumes so that all of the butterflies and bugs and everything will have a habitat. It just turned into more than I ever imagined.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C. In just a few weeks, the president of the American Farm Bureau Federation will be stepping down from his position after 16 years in office. Bob Stallman, a Texas farmer, says the experience has been phenomenal.
I think one of the more fantastic things is getting to know farmers and ranchers all across this great country and looking at different operations. And, the accents may be different, topography may be different, amount of rainfall you get may be different, crops may be different, but we're all the same. We all make our living from the land, and that's what's been gratifying.
Stallman's efforts as head of Farm Bureau will be recognized by the U.S. Agriculture Department in a January 6th event at the USDA patio in Washington, D.C. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack and Deputy Secretary Krista Harden will join others in celebrating Bob Stallman Appreciation Day. Stallman, meanwhile, says for the future of the American Farm Bureau Federation in representing agriculture,
we have a good organization. We're well positioned now. We have good leaders that are willing to step up and take the role, and so it's a good time to step down.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.